Today is part two of a Zoe lesson on boundaries. Our reference scripture is Genesis 2:16 through 17. It reads, "And the Lord commanded the man, saying, You may freely, unconditionally eat the fruit from every tree of the garden, but only from the tree of the knowledge, recognition of good and evil, you shall not eat. Otherwise, on the day you eat from it, you shall most certainly die because of your disobedience." Our previous lesson taught us that boundaries are necessary to protect us. As I shared in the previous video, we have gates throughout our house to limit our toy poodle from accessing certain parts of our home. Creating those boundaries for her has significantly impacted how we move throughout the house. We constantly adjust the gates to accommodate when and where she can go. We move around them strategically depending on where we need to travel in our home. We close them quickly or cross over them, believe it or not, because she is always close by watching our every move. She is still a puppy and is very eager to explore new places. Because we have imposed limits on Zoe Chanel, those limits impact our lives as well. We have occasionally almost fallen or tripped up because of these gates. When we have house guests, these boundaries we have created for our toy poodle impact them as well. Similarly, we see in these verses that they show how boundaries can have an impact on our lives in negative and positive ways based on our obedience. But it also shows that boundaries impact those who are connected to us. How so? In Genesis 2:16 and 17, God was speaking to Adam when he gave his instructions for interacting in the Garden of Eden. However, those instructions applied to Eve as well. She was not exempt from the outcome. If they violated the boundary, God said they would surely die. Obeying God would lead to life, but disobeying would lead to death. Boundaries have consequences for everyone that is connected to you. Just like Adam and Eve were connected and impacted by God's command, husbands and wives today are equally impacted by boundaries. Married couples create boundaries to safeguard their marriage, their finances, family, home, and so much more. In your friend groups, there are boundaries. There are established boundaries on your job and in our communities. Boundaries include laws, while others are unspoken rules that we just know not to break. Think about all the many relationships that you have and how boundaries have led to positive outcomes versus those that have resulted in negative outcomes. The negative outcomes have usually resulted from a boundary being crossed or violated in some way. The Garden of Eden was made for Adam and Eve to flourish and grow. They had access to all they needed to thrive and excel, but curiosity, temptation, deception, distraction, and pride convinced them that the one thing they could not have was worth more than what they already had access to. Let me say that again. They were convinced that the one thing God told them to stay away from was worth more than all that God had given them access to. Hmm. How often do we not recognize the magnitude of what God has blessed us with because we think something else is better or that we are missing out? There are things that we should abstain from, not touch, explore, or even consider as an option because it leads to destruction. There are things you don't need to be curious about. If God says no to something, it is for your benefit. Let's honor God with the boundaries established through the truth of His word. He tells us things like, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. That's in Proverbs 4:23. The word says you should mind your own business, 1 Thessalonians 4:11. And in Proverbs 22:3, it says that the prudent see danger and take refuge. That's a warning. Establish healthy boundaries that preserve your integrity and the relationship you have with the Lord, regardless of whether it is financial, emotional, physical, social, or professional. As previously stated, boundaries are necessary for every aspect of our lives to protect us. Boundaries also impact those who are connected to us in positive and negative ways. Reflect on how boundaries have impacted the lives of those connected to you in positive and negative ways. What boundaries do you need to establish, and what is God saying to you? I am Dr. Samantha Wilson Murphy, and this is your Prevailing Moment. Please like and share this video and follow Prevailing Woman Ministries on all its social media platforms. Thank you for listening, and God bless you all.